Hello everyone. In this video, we'll continue explaining the API curriculum using the flight book, which, as I mentioned, is a 3-in-1, a theory book, a logbook, and the curriculum. This time, we will cover the second point, which is flight mechanics. It includes the following topics: how a paraglider flies, flight limits, collapses, stalls, the three axes of rotation, pitch, roll, and yaw. Let's start with the first one. Why does a paraglider fly? Or, how does a paraglider fly? A paraglider is an aerodynamic profile, just like an airplane wing, and is basically made with the same structure. It looks like a horizontal drop. This aerodynamic profile creates a difference in pressure, which in turn generates a force called lift. If you were to cut through a paraglider at any point, you'd see this shape. This is the aerodynamic profile, and as I mentioned, the aerodynamic profile generates pressure along its surface. Let's recall the parts of the paraglider. The top part is called the extrados, the bottom part the intrados, the front is the leading edge where the cells are, and the back is the trailing edge where the brake is. These lift forces are generated all along the paraglider on both the extrados and intrados. Note that the greatest amount of lift is generated near the extrados, close to the leading edge, in this frontal area here. All of these lift forces can be theoretically summed up into a single vector, a single force, located approximately here on the extrados near the leading edge, in the middle of the paraglider. This theoretical force is called the pressure point, and it helps us understand the characteristics of the profile, particularly if it's stable or unstable. So, we've seen that a paraglider flies because it has an aerodynamic profile that creates a pressure difference, which generates a force called lift spread throughout the wing. This set of lift forces can be summed up into a theoretical pressure point, helping us understand our wing's characteristics. Flight limits. Our main flight limit will be braking. When we brake the wing, what we do is increase the angle of attack. The angle formed by the flight path and the angle of attack increases as we brake. In other words, the more we brake, the higher the angle of attack becomes. But there's a limit. If we brake 100%, with our arms fully extended downward, the angle of attack becomes too steep, and the paraglider stops generating lift. It will enter a stall. So, our first limit is braking. We should never brake 100% unless we're flaring during landing. In paragliding, there are three main speeds: maximum speed, which is with hands up and accelerated, trim speed or cruise speed, which is hands up without braking, usually where we find the best performance and stability of our paraglider, and minimum speed, which is when we brake 100% just before entering a stall. We must avoid this minimum speed, as flying at it means we're very close to a stall. Now we come to the third point. What is a stall, and what's the difference from collapses? A stall, or full stall, is purely due to pilot error, only because the pilot overcompensated or braked the paraglider 100% in flight. It doesn't happen due to turbulence. A collapse, on the other hand, is when the paraglider closes or collapses, and this isn't due to pilot error, but because they've flown into a rotor or turbulence, causing the paraglider to close. The main difference is that a collapse will reopen almost immediately, and isn't dangerous unless we're too close to the mountain. A stall, on the other hand, a full stall or negative stall, is dangerous and takes much more altitude to recover from. Both cause the wing to drop rapidly, but in a full stall, the descent is much faster, making it far more dangerous. Now, how do we fix a collapse? Simple. We shift our body to the opposite side to prevent the paraglider from spinning, and we can apply a little brake on the opposite side of the collapse, but without overdoing it. However, recovering from a full stall requires more skill and altitude. It's typically learned in a specialized SIV course, but basically, you raise your hands at the right speed and time. If you raise your hands too quickly, the paraglider might surge forward and cause other problems. To understand it graphically, if this is the leading edge of my paraglider, when I experience a collapse, the paraglider usually closes on one side, an asymmetric collapse. There are also symmetric or frontal collapses, but they're less common. Usually, one side closes. This is a collapse caused by turbulence. A stall, however, occurs when the pilot brakes 100%, making the angle of attack too high. With such a high angle of attack, the paraglider loses lift, stops flying, and rapidly descends. Lastly, the three axes of rotation. A paraglider rotates on three axes. The first is the horizontal axis. Picture an imaginary horizontal line. What does the paraglider do on this axis? This movement is called pitch, remember, horizontal axis. Next is the vertical axis. Picture a vertical line. The paraglider makes this movement, called yaw. Finally, we have the longitudinal axis. We tilt the paraglider sideways and picture an imaginary line along it. The movement along this axis is called roll or pendulum. Some people know this as the wing-over maneuver, which involves pendulum motion. Yaw, this movement, is uncommon during flight and usually resolves itself automatically. I've seen yaw movements in students who sit abruptly in the harness, causing the paraglider to yaw for a few seconds. You might also feel slight yaw in turbulence, but it's irrelevant. If it happens during flight, either because of turbulence or sitting down roughly, you can just turn or steer away from the turbulence, raise your hands and let the wing stabilize, or apply 30–40% brake, wait a second, then release the brakes, effectively resetting the wing. But yawing is not a big risk and doesn't require advanced techniques, nor is it common. The roll or pendulum motion is more common. Students often experience this in turbulence or when overcompensating the paraglider during takeoff or landing, which can lead to increasingly larger swings. I've seen this in students during landing, where they overcompensate and create a dangerous pendulum motion. I'll show you a video of a student who almost had an accident by not controlling the pendulum swing while landing. One cause of this pendulum motion is overcompensating while landing. We can see here how the student gets scared due to turbulence, brakes on one side, then the other, and the paraglider pitches forward. Miraculously, nothing happens. But notice how the pendulum motion increases with each brake input. If you land with that angle and speed, you can seriously hurt yourself. That's why you need to remain calm, as pendulum motions can be dangerous at low altitude. Another cause is the dog curve. When we focus on a heading and don't compensate for wind drift, we end up making corrections to stay on course, which can cause the paraglider to pendulum. This is called the dog curve and happens when we don't account for wind drift. The most common movement is pitch. This occurs in turbulence, and the problem with large pitch movements is that the paraglider can collapse when the pitch is too extreme. So it's very important to learn to control a pronounced pitch. Small pitch movements are no problem, ignore them. But if the pitch becomes large and starts affecting our control, we need to learn to manage it. It's simple. When the wing surges forward, brake energetically. Not 100%, maybe 30–50%, then release the brakes. That will stop the pitch. The issue is, if we brake at the wrong time, when the wing is behind us or going backward, we'll worsen the pitch. If that happens and we can't control it, we have two options: raise our hands and let it stabilize on its own, or make a turn, which will reset the pitch. To reiterate, brake when the wing has passed overhead and is surging forward. If you brake when the wing is behind, you'll make the pitch worse. That's it for this video. As always, I'll leave links in the description to related videos and some key questions for a knowledge review at the end of the course. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and give it a thumbs up if you like this video. Thanks so much and see you in the next video.